What would your words of wisdom be to young students who are about to start and go endure their architectural education?
What would your words of wisdom be to young people who are beginning their education
I would say, don't build anything which is not wonderful. That's what I think.
I've got one more question. I'm afraid we've got there's one over here or over there. There's one I know over there, but let's take this one.
Yeah, good evening, Chris. Very short question. I'm Stephen Lee, and like everybody in the room, you've been a big influence, so thank you. Tonight has probably made my brain work harder than it's done for some time. I'm not quite sure I've got all the answers. My question to you is very simple. Who would you spend 2 hours with listening to, as an architect or as a city planner?
Oh, someone alive today?
Not necessarily, but an architect or a city planner that you would listen to.
Oh, that makes it harder. Not camera. Well, I can think of a few people who are no longer living.
Yeah,
I mean, Martin Luther King would come pretty high on my list. But I don't know whether he knew anything about building. I find the best people are really simple-minded and humble and pure. That's my answer.
There we go. Chris, I sometimes talk about upside down thinking. In other words, if you've always looked at it this way, you suddenly turn it upside down and look the other way. And I think, in a sense, there's a little bit of that this evening, that you've asked us to look at things totally from another perspective.
Oh, absolutely, with intention.
With intention, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always a bit frightening, but the interesting thing is when you do that, you can sometimes see some interesting things, and I think that's very important. If one goes away from this and says, well, actually, I've heard some things which don't quite jive with the way I've been doing things, but there's another way of doing it, and that be a possibility. I think we're actually at a very interesting moment in time, actually, and I'm going to be interested to see how you respond tomorrow when we go and see a kind of another thing happening. In that we have two interesting things. One, we now have a technology of instant prototyping, of making things instantly, where we can actually cut out a whole set of phases of intermediaries in working through this process. We have the ability now, through the computer, to have a beginning and drawing we can pick out, we can customize, we can send down the line to somebody else who can then, with a laser cutter, cut it and make it into something else. We can create in a totally different way. We also, something you were talking about 40 years ago when we were doing the original pattern language and how it came together, that on your television every night you'd be able to see what your next door neighbor was doing, you'd be actually able to actually understand how your city was changing and how what you did was impacting us on it. Of course, our technology actually is allowing that to happen now. So we're actually at a really interesting point. We've also got a view now that we're much more interested in intermediate use, transitory uses, meanwhile spaces, the use of things in a gradualistic way, rather than the Big Bang approach. There's a whole set of things out there which are happening, which actually are getting closer to where you're coming from. But it's a very different technology. And what fascinates me is to talk about what the new technology out there might do to some of the things, because some people could say you look to be very grounded, and not saying it's a bad way, in the kind of what the traditional way of building. I think actually you could be looking at a modern way of building to take on the value system you're talking about. I think that will be interesting to explore. Close to my heart is actually this idea of continuity, that there isn't such a thing as a building that stops and design stops and then something else happens. It's a continuous process, and that's what comes across to me when I hear that. Thank you very much. And actually to Maggie, I think, the two of you is a team. And actually it's very, very important that.
She has great instincts.
Yeah, great instincts, and I know I came with that before when we met together and having lunch. It was very, very good. Also, I think the book is going to be significant actually, to read.
Oh, yeah.
I've only read it in the page, the first page, but I'm longing to read the other pages, because when you're really very thoughtful about that writing, and I think it's quite important. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody else who's put this together. And actually, I would hope that when the book comes out, there might be an event here which follows this up in this. I hope you've enjoyed this kind of venue when we have the real book to talk about.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, great
Thank you
idea.
very much, actually. Thank you, Alan, as well. Okay.